All right, so then Orlando Wednesday. Oh, Barcelona. Ooh, boy. Who the fuck's even on Barcelona?
Robert Lewandowski. Everyone Chelsea's trying to sign this season.
Is he going to be there?
He was at the last friendly they were at.
God, a Tuesday game. Disgusting. Was it always scheduled that way?
Colorado?
Yeah.
No, they moved it for Barcelona. Football is back. Soccer's back.
Right.
International Champions Cup is back.
It feels like it's been such a step back where there were several years where everyone seemed to get or be on the same page that you didn't really have to worry about these games. They were sort of dumb. Even before COVID, they just stopped happening altogether.
Yeah, they really did.
And now, not only are they back, but people are like, getting sincerely wrapped up in them. I'm like, oh, shut up.
They set the record for the Central Florida most attended soccer game for the London Derby friendly.
Wow, the Central Florida record?
Exactly, yeah.
It's Alex!
This is episode 218 of View from 202. All four of us here for an episode in between a win away at Austin. Definitely our first game in Austin, if not it's probably our first game against Austin ever, right?
Yeah, I mean,
that's what they said on the broadcast.
Last year, we only played a couple West teams, and they were not one of them.
And
that would have been a better time to face them because they were shit last year.
That's
they
true.
Were good this year.
They
were good this year.
That's true. We're anticipating, of course, the U.S. Open Cup semifinal on Wednesday. So a action-packed week here for the New York Red Bulls. Of course, then playing a nice little local side from Southern Europe on Saturday as well. And if you have tickets to that, I guess it'll be a nice day out to see the team play like a nice warm-up match against what I believe to be some sort of team from a fishing town on the Mediterranean.
Yeah, I heard they speak like a quaint language that no one else does too there.
Oh, it's like a vernacular Latin romance thing. That's cute.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Red Bulls get a big shootout win, 4-3 against Austin. Is it Austin FC? Atletico Austin?
Austin Football Club. I don't know if they're doing the Miami thing where they're straight up saying football instead of football.
Austin Town.
Austin Olympique.
Yeah.
Austin Partizan Austin.
Yeah.
Borussia Austin.
Autonomous University of Austin.
Austin Meat Commission FC.
Mm-hmm.
Austin Locomotive.
Oh, yeah. Dynamo Austin doesn't really work, does it?
No.
But yeah, our first ever game against them. How exciting. Didn't realize that they're going with Verde and Black as one of their nicknames, which I find quaint.
Yeah. I honestly, I think maybe we were already expecting to go into this a little bit, but Austin, somehow despite being the pre-court club and shit, somehow is not the most annoying and is the least annoying, in fact, of these axe throwing clubs, as we call them.
Right.
These Southern Highlands, Sunbelt, new money town clubs that MLS is trying to catch the wave on. A lot of them kind of suck. A lot of them are kind of annoying and have weird little affectations and stuff. But Austin, it all kind of fits a little bit.
They went through the rounds with their first axe throwing club and made the mistakes.
You mean the USL thing?
No, I meant with Columbus Crew.
Columbus.
Oh, yeah, right.
And then they just figured it out.
Columbus was maybe kind of the prototype, the 90s prototype.
Behind,
But I don't know. Yeah, the McConaughey thing, maybe they work it a little too hard, but if you have it, it works for that whole thing. I think
he's my governor.
Yeah, right. I think the Yeti Cooler shirt sponsor is
it's
a
pretty
very,
good. Yeah, it's
solid
very good.
touch.
It's a very official sponsor because it's a word mark.
Hey, yeah. I mean, it works aesthetically in a vacuum, but also in their odd
like
little type
realm,
of culture.
the heartland clubs, you know.
Yeah.
They should all just have competing cooler
I
brands.
feel like Yeti Cooler is the thing that
another one
unites,
should have like Igloo
that unites Middle America
together. Just their
divides
fishing
us.
coolers.
Mm.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm a ready-made guy. Is that one? That's one, right?
One of the like competing cooler
I think
companies.
those are
Yeah.
like tools, right?
Is it ready something? I don't know. This is the important stuff. But yeah, it's surreal that we're actually playing them now, too. And I'll say their little light green kit is actually kind of nice. It's not what they were wearing. The green black stripes, a little whatever. Also, their stadium is just like a traditional four-stand.
I like the
box
stadium.
It looks kind of.
It's good for Austin.
It has that. It's definitely like a kind of futuristic, kind of like hyper-real kind of stadium, but also like.
I don't like how much we're hyping them up right now.
No, I mean it's true. I mean we can say it because we beat them, but maybe this makes us go viral on Austin Twitter, but no, I like the way the stadium, even before this game, I like the way the stadium like looks on TV. Like it looks bigger than it actually is with the way that it's kind of arranged. Like I think it's just single deck, but it still like looks, like a real big kind of like new agey kind of venue.
Yeah, it's also maybe the fact that it's like sort of in a random place in like northern Austin, like at a freeway interchange, and it's just sort of maybe not trying to do like the downtown, the Ohio State University district
Austin
or whatever.
Isn't. Yeah,
right. Yeah,
right.
it just seems like it's more just random people who happen to live in Austin, which is most of Austin and always has been.
See, that's kind of I feel like what I like about Orlando too, right? Is that it feels like people who just like are in Orlando.
Oh, well, I mean, it's a thing. It's an ex-coworker of mine when I worked for a club who was like a marketing guy whose whole theory was that like Orlando's success wasn't anything about like putting posters up or anything. It was just that Orlando is the type of town that just has a bunch of people kind of like floating around looking for something to give a shit about.
In the age range of what a soccer fan would be.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, Austin seems like the closest fit for 2.0 of that.
That's true. If they made a remake of
like this guy compared it to like the old mill towns in England in like the late 19th century,
right.
Attaching themselves to the clubs that were forming. But yeah, go ahead.
If they made a remake of Office Space at the very last scene where Peter's happy on the construction site, his two co-workers Michael Bolton and the other guy would come by and say, Peter, you sure you don't want a job? Like, we got free Austin FC tickets from the boss. And he'd be like, nah, I'm good. And then they'd go and then have a great time at Austin FC.
That would make me slobber over them even more if they actually did, like, local flavor Office Space riffing.
Yeah. So anyway, they lost to us 4-3. But it's also funny looking at their squad. It's just like... Josh Wolf, I guess I knew he was there, but I forgot about it. Forgot that he has a son that's playing. But really just a bunch of guys. And then our old friend Felipe, still there. Our old enemy, Alex Ring.
Like a bunch of guys.
I think is Stroud still on them, I think? But he wasn't involved in this game?
Yeah, he wasn't there. He didn't pop up at all.
I don't know. I feel like Austin's team are what... a good like DC United team should be right now,
I kind of get what you're saying.
Yeah, Maxi Urruti, Diego Fagundes,
Ethan Finley.
Yeah, it is kind of a bunch of like
MLSers.
Second, like getting your second.
Yeah, like these guys like took the expansion draft seriously.
Right.
And it worked for them though. It's worked for them so far out in the West. As we've said many times on these episodes, we don't keep up with the West as much as we used to, just if nothing else out of expansion, making it more difficult. But this week, I bet the Austin fans tuning into the Eastern Conference for the first time in a while or ever are also maybe a little confused because the big bad Red Bull New York came in with a rotated squad of guys that maybe they were less familiar with, or if they looked at the recent team sheets on FOTMob, they wouldn't have seen a couple of these guys like Drew Yearwood. Patrick Klimala gets back in the squad, and we have an appearance from Sergin Goma, first start. We have
first start for Edelman too.
Yeah, first start for Edelman, and
has Clark started up until this point
this season?
I don't think so.
I think this was his first start.
So, tell me, what did you think about this rotated squad and how we came out?
We talked shit last week, but Gerhard played it blinder by playing all the guys we talked about getting frozen out, potentially, and then it's succeeding despite our best predictions.
Is that playing a blinder?
I think I said that with a hint of irony.
I think the herd is talking shit part might be.
Oh yeah,
might be valid.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, look. I mean, he
not
played
seriously. I hope Gerhard doesn't listen to this.
Right.
But, yeah.
John Tolkien, if you're
for his own sake, not ours.
If John Tolkien listened to the show, shave a lightning bolt into your eyebrow for us.
Oh God. I mean, Gerhard wouldn't be able to understand her extremely thick accents, so that's the first thing keeping him away. But. I mean, lo and behold, we throw out a couple guys who, suck and don't understand anything, apparently, like Drew Yearwood and Patrick Klimala, and just have them go out and cook a little bit in the heat. And look at that. Score a bunch of goals. Give up a couple goals, too. But I guess I'll load the question. I thought that we looked quite lively and dynamic with a couple of these guys on the field, particularly Patrick Klimala and Drew Yearwood, seemed to relish the opportunity to be very active and constantly pestering Austin, who, suffice it to say, I think prepared very poorly for us. I don't think they really knew what they were getting into, and I think
Josh Wolf
even said that.
Yeah, literally said that they had a poor week of training, in his words.
Josh Wolf knows how we play.
I think he might have been.
Yeah,
I don't know, might have slept on us a bit. Also, assuming that we're in between the Derby and our Open Cup match on Wednesday,
this is why we should not complain about media coverage. We could sneak one through on these guys.
Yeah.
I think there might be a dynamic of that, but as it is. But
I mean, also, I assume, I actually don't know how this works, but every team probably has tape on every team, right? I don't know if there's a collective pool that they're all allowed to access.
If nothing else, they're logged into Y Scout or something.
Right. So,
which thank you to our provider and the Bong for giving us our subscription for Y Scout.
Isn't it Lens, our official goalkeeping? Analyst?
He's the one who has the login info, but the one who paid
Annabong
Enterprises
greased the skids,
right.
broke some arms.
He got the Enterprise edition, but we only have one login. But.
Yeah, and I mean, it was also a very hot day on Sunday out in Austin, which we've struggled with, the New York Rebels have struggled with previously so far this season, and dare I say Austin maybe got a little complacent with that as well, thinking maybe that we would slow down to their level, but maybe the fresh legs of guys like Ngoma and Klimala and Drew were able to power us through a little bit, and I think, is this just a case of us successfully scoring early and beating a team around, or is there something more going on here? Because there have been previous games this season, even going into last season, where we say, gosh, it feels like we just sort of rely on dominating the first 20 minutes and getting a goal and kind of forcing our will on the match through that game state for the rest of the 90 minutes, and when it doesn't happen, we flounder. Is this just what happened this game, that we did successfully do that? Or, I don't know, was there something actually different or dynamic from the setup and the personnel involved?
Well, I mean, you could say that. That's pretty much exactly how the match went out. I think there are little further details you could look into why maybe the way we played changed, and the things we were good at in the first half hour were not in the second hour, or the last hour of the match. One of those things, obviously, I think Goma coming out is kind of he definitely, I thought, was the best player on the pitch in a lot of ways when he was on. Just looked not only natural out there, but he kind of had that youthful swagger where he thought he was better than everyone, and kind of also showed that he was better than everyone, like because he believed he could get to the ball and he got to the ball a lot of the time. But that was also made possible, because I think like the interchange in our attack was better just from the types of runs that were made. But also like, I think you were saying in the beginning, like like we've noticeably not done well in hot weather. I think if you look, and I might be getting ahead of us, but like if you look longer scale over this match too. Maybe that's why we gave up 3 goals in this game, right? Like we definitely didn't look as alive in the last 20 minutes as we were kind of like holding up in the first 60 or so. So
I think we by scoring early and never having to play from behind. I mean, really, the entire game. I mean, that suits how we play entirely. We ended up, what were the possession numbers? It was like 75 to 25.
It was like 78 to 22.
Yeah, 20,
So like that was exactly what we wanted to get into. I think that there's been a lot of games where we started out strong. We just haven't had the ability to finish. And I don't think that is, as we all kind of have agreed, it's not really the issue of a single player or a striker not executing, but it's lack of chances. But I think that we kind of created our chances off of just lazy defense, and I think just like an Austin team that was on their back foot for, I don't know, no real reason. But that just allowed us to play how exactly we wanted to play, even when we made a bunch of personnel changes throughout the late first half, early second half.
Yeah, I mean, Struber kind of cited it directly after the game. I mean, he didn't say this precisely, but he did say that his game plan was to break up Austin's play in the middle, and that's where their possession usually kind of tries to stretch people out, and but generally it was kind of that with that as maybe a primary document. This was maybe the most precise example of a team that plays into our tactics hands, team that tries to build from the back. I mean, you could see in some of the passing charts that the lines were extremely thick going between the keeper Tarbell, that guy from San Jose, who's apparently now on Austin. Not that I keep up with the West, as Brit said. Did not make a very good showing for the quality of goalkeeping in the Western Conference. But
there's a great 1-2 on FootMob for the player facts of Andrew Tarbell for this last match. Player fact: Andrew Tarbell was the most accurate passer, 95% to play 45 minutes or more to the point. Player fact number 2: Andrew Tarbell made an error that led to a goal for the New York Red Bulls. So all right.
That's
balances each other out.
That's the sort of match report that makes me take you off my Football Manager short list.
I think even on the broadcast, they said like, oh, it kind of seems like they have notes to just rip things at this keeper, and he might just fumble.
I could gather that. I mean, I was listening to it. I was actually on a bus for the early first half of the game, and Steve and I was listening to Matt Harmon and Steve Jolly, and Jolly was thanks for the high five, by the way, Steve, for dapping you on Twitter. But he said that there was not only was there a lot of like good diagonal running and all that kind of stuff, but that sorry, I got kind of starstruck for a second talking about Steve. What was it, the point you were just making?
We were just taking these shots at Tarbell.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, that he was literally saying, like, just, anytime the team was getting within 20, 30 yards with nobody directly marking them, they were taking a rip. And, it's a better strategy than kicking it at their hands when it's kicking it at the goalie's hands.
What a better time to segue into our sponsored segment brought to you by Red Bull Radio. If you want analysis during the game.
I stumbled around it a little bit because, like I said, I caught the vapors, but but yeah, no, I mean,
thank you for the sponsorship check.
Right? Yeah, no, I mean, they were a great way to follow the game as always. But
Tarbell got bailed out as well too because he had those
offside calls.
Those offside calls, which were both offside. Like actually, for the first one for Omir, when I looked at it again and saw like the second deflection, I was closer than I thought, but I was shocked that they didn't call it immediately. But then the second one where Klimala hit it off his hands, and then was it Edelman who turned it in on the rebound?
Clark.
Yeah. yeah, he was having a tough time already, so it's very smart of them to keep pounding him. And then even Drew's goal as well. I mean, I don't think he had much of a chance, but we clearly were feeling very free to just hit the ball, drive the ball hard towards the net. And
hit the ball deep.
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
evolved from aiming at the hands in the box to aiming at the keeper.
Yeah.
So,
I
easier
mean,
target.
Yeah, that's what all these video analysts work on.
Very between Drew and Clark and Klimala being out there is probably the cleanest strike technique lineup we've had in a while. If only we had Lucanius out there. I mean, I guess he came in eventually, but lots of hard hit, very straight balls or balls with some backspin out there. But yeah, we definitely capitalized on that very well. Has there been any update on Sergin Gomez so far on what the injury prognosis is?
Not really. Struber said last night that it was not sexy. That Ngoma had to come out that early, and said he didn't have details or anything, but that it didn't look great. But then he said that about Tom Edwards a few weeks ago, and he only missed like
sprung back
a week or so. I mean, I think I would like to think, and it seems to be, that we have pretty good medical staff this year. There hasn't been any injuries that felt like have really spiraled out of control.
Not that it really.
And Reyes came back pretty cleanly. So
Yeah, not that it really matters, but I at the end of the match, he was up and like actively walking around.
And wasn't like icing or
Exactly.
anything.
Yeah, exactly.
I was gonna say someone had remarked in the post game celebration that he wasn't even like wrapped up or anything.
No.
Which was or taped up even, which is a good sign, I guess. But
All right, fingers crossed.
also, he's like what? He's 16.
I mean, not like it.
He's
not
coming
like
back from
not
injury,
like
I get, but like he's like 16. His body will heal.
well, not like it doesn't suck for him, because it does if it's a bad injury, but also just like young players kind of deal with kind of chronic injuries for a little bit, and then hopefully they shake them off by the time literally their body's done
it'll
growing.
heal in the off season.
Yeah.
he surely had to go play Fortnite or something like that. Is that what those kids are doing nowadays?
I think Fortnite is for like fucking Gen Xers now. I don't know.
Fortnite's kind of back a little bit right now. I mean, it's Roblox and.
Yeah, he had to go. He had to go do Minecraft. He had to go make a mine.
He had to play Crazy Bones.
Yeah, he had to do balloons tower defense too. He's like, shit, the monkeys are coming in. I forgot to set my balloons towers up. I had to get
That
subbed
game
out.
actually did have a bit of a moment a couple months ago.
Well, yeah, that's why I mentioned it.
Our moment correspondent Peaches. I mean, it's true. Like,
I played a lot of hours on Balloons Tower Defense 4, let me tell you.
All right. Wow, they're up to 4 now.
You have like hero monkeys, and you like.
There's been like 200 now. That's what I call musics in the time that there's been. There's only been 2 balloons tower defenses.
look, there's been like 6 Crazy Frog
Think
albums.
about the amount of music that's come out that's like total crap, and think about how much quality Balloons Tower
But
Defense
this is
has
now
had.
that's what I call music. How dare you? Anyway, Cameron Harper came in for Sergin Gomez, and he played just up top, right? He didn't,
Yeah.
It's like a pure winger, right?
All right.
Yeah, as opposed to
Wing back.
He got a
Early this
nice,
season.
tidy little goal there. And I can't help but
Tuckers.
notice Drew Yearwood loves that little pass. He loves that little, like,
kind of shovel it forward a
but
little.
like it's the kind of pass that like shaves the grass, cuts the grass a little bit. But yeah, just like at that nice little angle, he slits it through, because I guess he squares up. It looks like he's maybe about to take a rip, and then he just takes that really simple pass that slides through there. I mean, I think one of Lucanius's first goals came off of a similar pass from Drew in that sort of way, where it's ultimately very simple, but he just successfully waits long enough or feints everyone, and I think it's great. I thought Drew had a solid game. He did end up getting deked later on a dribble that Austin then scored, so not perfect, but these are the kind of things that you have managers and tape and coaching for a young player, so I think the raw talent really shone through for Drew Yearwood, and I'm also very happy that Cameron Harper was able to show off his techers a bit. I guess now that we've talked about most of the goals, we can just round it up by mentioning Barlow also got his beak wet a little bit and slammed one home. And was that also from a through ball from Drew?
From I think the first the assist was from Harper.
Harper, yeah.
But I don't
Okay.
know. I don't know who provided the initial pass.
Okay. Yeah.
The one before that.
Yeah.
It's funny, they just posted before we recorded a close-up angle of the goal, and you can see that Barlow actually goes for a touch and misses it.
And it sets him up perfectly.
And the half volley was perfect for him to slam it. I don't know, maybe he's pulling back, but it worked out well.
It was a feint.
But it's
It was a
also,
body feint.
but it is also. I mean, people are being, sorry, a little obnoxious, being like, "Oh my God, Barlow scored a fucking goal!" Like that's how crazy
Right.
this game is. But also just like, I mean, we've obviously hammered on this about Klimala, but like we literally haven't been creating opportunities like that
Right.
for literally months now, where the ball is just kind of bouncing and a guy is on a free run to hit it. I mean, those kind of chances really haven't been happening.
Not to mention, we see Klimala in this game creating like that space to create chances for other people in this
Right.
game 3 times.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he got kind of his props from Struber after the game too. That, I mean, Struber kind of like, when he was going through like that the whole team did well, he sort of went on a detour saying like, I want to say Klimala like played smart, which goes in the face of the observations of certain analysts.
Well, I mean, like I said this online.
who were watching a Red Bulls game for the first time all season, it seems. But yeah.
Yeah, but I said this online, and it's like not to pit our strikers against each other, but I'm going to do it right now. It just like, I think that the type of work rate that Klimala shows is that he makes kind of like all of these runs that are often like thankless and like unrewarded, but that's the kind of like those short sprints are what create space for other players. But like you might not necessarily see him on the counter press like necessarily like trying his hardest, right? But like Tom Barlow's the type of player you see him always running at the ball. Even if he's off the ball, he's running at the ball. Even if we have the ball, he's kind of running at the ball too. Which like looks, like you obviously see that more. It's a lot more visible. But like I think you're maybe alluding to Struber calling it a smart striker. Like that's the kind of work rate I want to see from a striker. Like that's what I mean by work rate.
I mean, there's been, I mean, we don't know, based on the benching and stuff like that, how much maybe Struber subscribes to this, perhaps. But there's been this kind of discourse around Klimala, and God knows there's layers of discourse around Klimala. But one of them is that he doesn't run hard enough, and that he gives up on runs or something. And like he doesn't press hard enough, in kind of like you're saying, Peach, is the sort of visceral way that people expect from maybe a Tom Barlow or some other players. But then, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the show, but I have just like, talking, around that. I mean, watch some tape of like BWP in like some of his peak seasons. Yeah. And I don't even mean this to like dump on BWP. I mean to say, look at what,
how he's
a
running.
legendary striker at the peak of our, kind of pressing tactics. He was not running like a bat out of hell on every single ball, on every single play, not harassing the center backs at all times. I mean, that's not always how the press works, and especially Struber's press. I mean, there's been certain games where the team dives in more than others, but Struber's press is generally based around kind of preventing the next pass rather than going at the guy on the ball right now.
And you need your team behind you to be in shape for that to happen.
Right. Just kind of piggybacking on what you were saying.
Yeah, and like the only reason I know this, and Sam I've complained to after many a GeoGuessr game about my thankless runs, is that those sprints are much more tiring, honestly, than doing like pressing runs, because they're longer
in midfield and stuff.
Exactly, because they're like you're running 40 yards, and then like you don't have any guarantee of a payoff. Like people like gather the ball, maybe they lose it, but like those runs are like more tiring than like just like running at the ball, like whoever has the ball, the defender, because there's kind of like a little bit of a carrot at the end of that stick there.
Right.
Well, for the goals that we concede, so we do end up conceding 3 for this one. The first Drewsy goal is the one that comes off the corner, had the ball, and he just kind of hits the ball low on the volley, squeaks through. What do you think? I mean, is this just bad luck? I think it's partially bad luck, but there is a bit of a pattern here.
With not only set piece defending, but the second ball off a set piece.
Yes.
Kind of coming back to haunt us again is, definitely something to be noted around that. So.
Yeah, I mean, most of those balls don't get through traffic. I mean, there's not really a lack of effort of us trying to close down the ball. We're a little slow. But yes, something that I would hope they're drilling more during the week is just getting a better clearance on these headers out of the box, because we're presented way too many little chances like that they only need to be lucky once. We need to be lucky every time.
Right.
So that was frustrating to see. And then it comes through sort of later in the game as well. I mean, it is after sort of this sort of acrobatic bike attempt that they put together, but I think the third goal as well was just a product of us not really cleaning up behind us. And it is a little bit of a rotated squad this week, and it is hot, but I think definitely seems like repeated themes of ways that we're conceding that I would hope that the training during the week is continuing to work on, because there's been some marginal improvement, but it continues to haunt us. What do you think? Is there anything else going on here with our weaknesses? I mean, the second goal that Austin scores is also just sort of a
fluky.
It's just a big, powerful strike.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you could really. It was like a 100-degree game too. I think both teams kind of just either it would have led to either a really boring game or a really chaotic game. Thankfully, in a way, we got a chaotic game that went to our favor. But I take that into a lot of effect for this game and how it went.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully if Reyes gets back and starts playing regular minutes, we can cut down on the amount or the weakness that we seem to have on these balls into the far post in particular, because that is the ball that was initially sort of liked but screwed up. Yeah, it's less than ideal and definitely a continuation of things we've seen. Any other comments or thoughts on this win away at Austin for the first time we've ever played?
Chomping at the bit, really. I love when we score. It just makes everything so much easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, that is nice.
It's just like when we actually are rewarded for the effort that we put in to the first 25 minutes of a game.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe, and I've kind of tried to resist doing this thing with all the sort of lineup contention recently about pitting players in the team against each other. Like, to pump one player up, you have to crap on his competition or whatever. And that's not what I'm doing here, despite that disclaimer.
Right, like I did earlier in this episode.
Right. You see some evidence of, at least from the run of play, like we've kind of focused on as the main place where the offensive issues or the offensive drought is happening, is that less so Luquinhas, but maybe Lewis Morgan, especially in that final third role, kind of more advanced, either as a 10 or a winger, however the team is set up. Those roles maybe don't fit him as well as the wingback role he was in earlier in the year. He was still able to produce from and still able to get chances from. I mean, the Toronto game where he had his hat trick is obviously the one exception to that rule, where he was playing as a winger. But beyond that, he's a player who doesn't really carve out space or make the kind of off-ball runs that, especially the kind of diagonal runs that were happening in Austin, that create the sort of chances that we were seeing yesterday. And I think especially if, Seam Struber is leaning more towards the 4 in the back formations recently, but if he wants to stick with 5 in the back more often, I think Morgan as a wing back, pushing higher. He still gets his chances, to kind of put balls in, even get shots of his own sometimes, and he is able to kind of run behind the play and use his speed to kind of gather second balls and gather plays that have maybe broken apart a little bit, rather than kind of running ahead of things where he's maybe not as productive.
Yeah,
so.
Lewis is an on-ball guy, I would say, right? And we had a lot of off-ball guys kind of in this game.
A little bit, yeah.
You know.
It's an interesting observation. Also, looking forward to Wednesday, the Open Cup semifinal, because as you were talking about heavily last week, it feels, or it seems as though the team had sort of gotten a little stale in the final third of the pitch, where looking back at our last month of games, a lot of our goals had kind of been created from individual effort or goal SOs or things like Sergio Goma just stripping the ball individually from someone and slotting it in. And that creativity was sort of missing for either by design or is just sort of by happenstance or just because the guys are in a slog. Yet we come out on Sunday with a kind of fresh face, some new players who get an opportunity to play and seem to be more dynamic and creating those kind of runs, and were just straightforward chances with some of the guys who have not been playing much. And looking towards Wednesday, you would think that maybe we might see sort of the more typical lineup, considering that we probably rotated. You probably see Luquinha starting, you probably see Morgan starting as well. Your guess is best as mine for who would start at forward. But I imagine Frankie Amaya and CCJ will also probably be in there. Do you think there's something we can build on, or learning moments we can take from Sunday to rejuvenate sort of that fluidity or creativity in the final third? Or if we run out there with a similar team as the City Derby game, the league game, and the couple games before that, do you think that we might still struggle to produce a little bit of that spark?
I think, there's a little bit of a risk. I mean, like I said with Morgan just now, that, maybe you lose some of that edge that we had in this game. But there's a little bit of that, but there's also how much of that edge was provided by Austin playing into our hands. But then I think, maybe, like I said, keeping Morgan in the wingback role, playing Morgan in the wingback role again, maybe frees a player like Luquinhas to come into the side again and fit into that same sort of running that we were seeing yesterday or in the Austin game. Maybe there's a risk, again, not to act like they're a downgrade or whatever, but that Luquinhas's tendencies sort of limit some of that, because of course he likes to obviously be on the ball and drag guys in a little more than kind of running and giving and going as part of a team. But that being said, I don't know, like I said about Austin sort of playing into our hands, I don't know if Orlando is necessarily the same type of team who will do that, but then we beat them pretty bad in their place earlier this year, so we'll see.
That is true. Orlando's is in sort of bad form. However, they are still stubbornly kind of high up in the table. They have 30 points overall, only 6 points back of the New York Red Bulls with the same amount of games played, but they've not been in a good way. They, recently lost to Philadelphia, but have drawn also against Atlanta and Colorado, and then even lost 5-3 against DC United. It's since last month, since Saturday, June 18th, they've only won one single game, and that is a 1-0 win over Inter Miami, which is not nothing, but they are definitively in a funk. We'll be playing them at their own place, which, as Cork said, we did beat them, but it presumably will be another hot one in the middle of the week, although hopefully helped by the fact that it is an evening game. Got a forecast of evening thunderstorms, typical of Florida, I guess. Probably about 88 degrees.
Typical of New York now.
That's
or like
true.
Open Cup games as well.
Yeah, so might be potential for sitting through 30-minute thunder delays throughout the night. And then, of course, the same night on Wednesday is the other Open Cup semifinal between Sacramento and Sporting KC, another team we've beaten recently. And as a reminder, they've done the draw for the hosting rights the only way that we would host another home game in the U.S. Open Cup is if we get through to the final and Sacramento Republic beats Sporting KC in their semifinal, which, hey, definitely not impossible. Sporting KC is not in a great way right now. So never say never, but first, of course, we have to take on Orlando, which delightfully every so often I'm reminded that Pato is just still at Orlando.
Just thinking that.
Just hanging out.
Just chilling.
Chelsea legend Pato.
I mean, how many times was he
football
there?
legend Pato.
Yeah. But,
looking like a, I don't know, like Hollister model from 2007 icon.
All the way
Pato.
into 2022.
Yeah, I mean, still, like, hasn't given it up.
Yeah. Orlando's sure a bunch of guys, though. We got, I feel like Galese is familiar by now. He's been here for a while. Schlegel, of course.
the most cursed name in Major League Soccer.
Yeah. Is it Rodrigo?
Rodrigo,
yeah. Janssen, who I feel like last time we saw Janssen at Red Bull Arena, he almost blew one of his arteries in his head. He was so fucking pissed. And then Tesho Akindele. Still chilling.
Tesho's around?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. He's bald now, but
30 years old.
Is he still playing for Canada?
I mean,
no, he
is
hasn't played for
being
Canada in a while.
picked for them? I don't know.
But they're like kind of good now, right?
Yeah, no, he's literally not good enough for
Yeah.
Canada anymore.
And of course, Junior Urso, a name that I always just notice.
It's a great name.
I know, it's like
The young
where's
bear.
Senior?
Young bear.
Urso?
Yeah, I was gonna say he sounds like a Kim Possible villain or something.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what are you looking forward to in this game against Orlando? Do you think we should approach it any differently than we have? Do you think there's any personnel that or tactics that are particularly important for this win or go home game here on Wednesday?
Well, it looks like the way we lined up against them when we played them earlier this season at Orlando, we had a similar, I think, setup that we did to this past weekend, where we had, our kind of like a 4-2-3-1 ish, whatever you want to, call it. But you have, a 4-man back line, and then you would, have an opportunity to play some of our, like top tier wingers. I mean, it seems like, if that type of strategy, to me, it seems like that's something that we can go out in the first 25 minutes and do the same sort of thing. We just have different personnel swaps. So we just have Luquinhas coming on, and Amaya and CCJ in that kind of deeper midfield role. I guess the question, I mean, at this point, it seems like Morgan's kind of a default in the attack. He wouldn't really play in a wing-back position, kind of like you were saying, Cork, even though I think that's a great idea.
But I wouldn't want to do that for this game.
Well, there'd be a
Exactly.
slight opening, though, because Tom Edwards is suspended for yellow card accumulation for this game.
But that's not his position. Oh, you mean like Nealis would play or something?
It just creates one position that could have a domino effect for how we line up on the back, whether Dylan Nealis just plays as right back in a 4 in the back system, or if he plays as a right center back and a 5 in the back, and that can allow Morgan to get on the wing, potentially. I don't know.
That's what I would prefer, but I think it is a little bit. I mean, as much as we've kind of come around on Dylan Nealis recently on this show, I think it is a kind of a consensus that perhaps Struber shares that he's a bit of a liability as a right back in a 4-man back line as things are right now. So like you're saying, Brit, adds one more sort of nudge to the idea of playing in a 5.
Do you think he's more of a liability as a right back in a 4-man back line than a right center back in a 3 CB system?
Yeah, I think so. I think Dylan Nealis has played pretty well in his center back roles in the 5-man. I mean, he's played on the left side of 3 center backs sometimes, which is odd, but he's done reasonably well. I mean, he was playing there in the game against San Jose, the season opener. He was playing there for a lot of the Kansas City game. He could I'd prefer that. Maybe we see Reyes though.
I say,
mean,
Reyes
Yeah.
has been on the bench for at least 2 matches, right?
I was gonna be upset that he didn't get put on this past weekend. You
Yeah.
know, they opted to put on Delis for Long when Long was out, so I was a little surprised that Reyes didn't get minutes there. But I guess it's just a question of, is he ready? Because I think that, you know, if we can get him back and in the same way he was last year, then we're looking great in that kind of three man, like center, you know, 3 center back lineup. Would love to see more of that.
Yeah, I think now that we haven't seen him play, and I think he won't start, obviously, I think, in this Orlando game. If he does, I'd be surprised. But, you know, I'm not.
It'd be a hell of a comeback.
It would. I'm honestly, like, my concern, and this is something we've talked about throughout the season, of not having any left back kind of cover, especially now that we don't even have Jason Pendant, right? But
which was the greatest thing to ever happen to this club, but no. Greatest transaction in club history.
But, you know, I'm kind of concerned that this might be kind of the cliff point of John Tolkien's energy levels for this season. He's locked in a lot of minutes, and, you know, we don't really have any alternatives there. And if
he played a full 90 this.
Yeah, exactly. And he
this
played
weekend.
a full 90 this weekend too. Like, who plays there if he's tired? No one, right? And like, if he gets subbed off early, there's no one really that I'm expecting to play there.
Yeah, I think haven't we seen Delis there like a little bit sometimes?
We've seen Klamala there.
We've seen Delis there. We've also seen it more recently Harper there as a left wing back.
I was going to say maybe that too.
Maybe instead of Morgan at wing back, it's really Klamala at wing back that we shouldn't be expecting.
Well, but I mean, both those guys, both Delis and Harper, being ahead of Morgan as a emergency left back option is weird to me, because Morgan is about as 2-footed of a player as you get, and, you know, is just kind of, you know, generally perceived to be a more robust player in general. So, strange situation there, definitely. You think that's one of the areas that the team would be strengthening this summer transfer window, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean, like, the one thing I don't want to happen after the Wednesday's match is for me to be like, oh yeah, I called it, because that would bode very poorly for the rest of our season too, right?
So at this point, it seems like we're kind of coalescing around this like 3-man back line situation, right? I mean, if we think that if Edwards can't start, and we don't really know if there's confidence that Dylan Nealis can be a standalone right back, it seems like signs are kind of pointing to
naturally
to
it's
it being a 3-man back line.
Yeah.
So would we just assume that it's Sean and Dylan and
Long.
Aaron Long as our back 3, and then we think that maybe we have Tolkien and Harper as our wing backs?
That's what I think is going to happen.
And then Morgan further up the field.
Yep.
I would assume we're probably going to see Frankie and CCJ as the pairing in the middle. I like Drew in general. I would think if we're chasing a goal or just chasing the game, even if we're just looking to break through, I think he put his name at the top of the list, or the top of the mind, for being thrown in the game, maybe even just in the second half or at the 60-minute mark or something, if we want to get a little bit more vertical and open the game up a little bit. I think that could be a good move. I'm not going to assume that he's going to start, though. And then, of course, I do think that Klimala should start up top as well. So I guess, what is that, like a 5-2-3 that we've outlined there?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think between Klimala dropping back and Lucanius kind of dropping in and being a little bit inverted, that will create the room to have guys run in behind, especially if Harper is playing sort of an aggressive right wing back position, or even if Morgan's playing there.
So you think Klimala should come in for like Omir, I guess, in general? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we should play with a forward.
I mean, I do too, but I don't.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think he's going to start.
I was gonna maybe take the devil's advocate route and say that not to call Struber the devil, but this might be the kind of game where a Tom Barlow start makes a little more sense than usual. Because I mean, starting Tom Barlow at home or going with a false nine, God forbid, at home is a bit strange. But in a game on the road in a hot climate where you can always depend on Barlow to kind of at the very least tire out a center back core over the course of the first 50, 60 minutes, whatever, and just kind of bang him up, and then have a guy like Klimala come in and run the channels a little bit. Maybe this is the sort of game where that makes a little more sense than the norm. So
I mean, look, I think that also Struber's, I think wants Barlow to start anyway, and the fact that he scored last game is also just like validating his whole thought process too. So I mean, at this point, Barlow's probably gonna start. But I think you're right. It's a good point for tactics wise. Like it could be really valuable to wear down the defense on the road like that. And then seeing second half Klimala if we aren't able to put anything together in the first 45 to 60.
I mean, the real question is who are we saving for the weekend game?
Well, we gotta
big game.
Yeah, the big game.
Got to make sure Jesus Castellanos fit for that, and Bento Estrella. And Isir
I mean,
obviously.
are we going to sign Andrew Tenari on a short-term loan for this
That would
game?
be great.
Is Hassan Dam come up to the first team for the game?
Yeah.
Theoretically, there are no rules about that. We could just have
that's true.
we could just have somebody who's not even on a contract. We'd have Bill Murray play in the game or something. Something like that.
It would be funny if they tried to do the I guess Bill Murray did it once, but the Will Ferrell spring training type thing. But he goes out and he just fucking dies. You know, you can't really just swing a bat around 2 times and go sit down.
Wait, coming in for Cameron Harper, number 98, Garth Brooks. Oh my god.
Now
And
coming
Chris
in,
Gaines.
yeah, I was gonna say now coming in for Garth Brooks, number 89. Yeah, it's a sort of weird game, just drama wise and contextually for the season. Obviously, it's very big, but the season is I don't know. We're still third in the table. We're still a week out from a pretty deflating loss against City that has put us a legitimate step back towards the top 2 of the table, which I think we could be at. But we still seem to have a little bit of the fight in us that prevents us from fully sliding down the table, as shown by Sunday. It doesn't look like we're more than halfway. Well, I guess we're about halfway through the summer now, considering how hot it is through the entirety of August and a lot of September, and we're not sliding like we did last year. Our depth seems to be better, but we've got this really big Open Cup semifinal, and I'm sure it'll always be devastating to lose in a semifinal, but at the same time, it doesn't quite feel like an all or nothing week for the fate of the season in the way that 2017 did, or really most cup run seasons. Even if you're doing pretty well on the table, there's still, I don't know. It feels like, it still just does not feel like a huge defining moment of the season to me so far. Am I just alone in feeling that way? Or is this actually sort of a weird fixture? Is the drama going to arrive once the ball kicks off on Wednesday and it'll all feel different for me? I don't know.
That always happens when we play Orlando, I feel regardless. But I'm kind of getting amped up for this game. Clearly Luna's getting amped up for this game. I'm sorry about that. She hasn't pooped today, so that might be why she's been so angry to the listener. But I'm this is it feels like a pretty big game that we're going into to me. I'm giving it
that's
the ceremony and the reverence I think it deserves.
I mean, that's how big games work, is that they are, as the kind of idiom that Brit's used all season, like waiting for the shoe to drop on this season. This is a big game that kind of forces that. I mean, this is the sort of game that determines a season's legacy, and obviously winning the cup is the ultimate goal, but making a final is pretty significant run for a season, and we'll see what the verdict is. As Buck Showalter says, the game always satisfies our curiosity.
It is odd also to be playing a team like Orlando that we beat so casually earlier in the season in a way that they just didn't show up to that game in Orlando at all. I'm almost hesitant to draw too many conclusions from it. They were so poor. Hopefully we've just got some muscle memory in asserting ourselves in that building from that. And hopefully we can rise to the occasion. I don't know if they're going to sell out that stadium. They probably do decently well.
I think they've had their attendance really taper off the last few years, and since COVID, after being one of the darlings when they first came into the league, and plus, it's a weeknight in the middle of the summer. Who knows?
It would be disappointing if, let's say it is stormy but hot, and then we get a couple thunderstorms and we get kickoff pushed back by 30 minutes.
Patented rain delay games.
And then maybe the game resumes at 9:30 and it's still kind of hot and humid, and there's half of the crowd there, but they're rowdy, and then it goes to extra time, and then it just feels like sort of a weird game. That would be the worst case scenario for me, because
we kind of thrive in those games.
That worked in Chicago, right?
I guess that's true. It would be the worst case scenario.
We would have won that NYCFC.
If we lost in that kind of context, that would be particularly annoying for me, because then it would also deny the sort of thing that you're saying about defining the season.
It would shatter my worldview.
It would no, it would feel like, that was weird and unusual and hard to prepare for and predict, and it feels like you can't really say that it defines their season or gives it just kind of would feel very, very unsatisfying all sorts of ways around. So I hope that doesn't happen. I hope the rain moves through Orlando earlier in the day, and that we can just get a 90-minute show off with Orlando. Don't even really want extra time. I don't know. Most extra time is bad, and kind of just crappy. And hope we can just slug it out and determine it before that.
See, I was just saying that I would be distraught if we had lost a game like that. That was very kind of in the rain and grimy and muddy, because basically my entire worldview and happiness depends on the fact that I believe that my team, is good in those situations, and if we weren't, I don't know how I'd be able to cope, to be honest.
Yeah, we're due for a late winner, aren't we? When's the last late winner we had?
Wasn't 2 games ago?
With the Atlanta one? How late was that?
The Ngoma game.
Yeah. I guess that was pretty...
That was about a little over a month ago, I think.
Now, still be due.
It's still kind of due for a big one, I feel, though.
Right.
The Cincinnati semifinal, basically, is what I'm thinking of.
There was a video that circulated recently of the BWP goal in the, what was it, 90th minute of that game. So we are due for something like that. I think it's just part of the frustration is, I think, in the defining moment, it's so hard to have that when the personnel changes so frequently too. And if we don't see Klimala up there, it's hard, as I think a group of people who believe he is the best striker that we have, to not see him start a game like this. It makes it that much harder to actually define kind of what this team is. So it would be frustrating if that's the case on Wednesday. But I mean, I'm hopeful that Orlando is just, will come out flat-footed, is in bad form, and it will allow us to get an early goal and control the game.
Yeah,
I feel cup success, a team who, if we don't necessarily do better in the league, that does well in the cup kind of has that kind of thing where their best players aren't necessarily playing due to the nature of the run. But yeah, I don't know. It's Yeah, I just think it's such a big game. I just feel it. I think like I'm feeling antsy for it already, even though 2 more days.
All right, so I guess I'm on the outside here. I think maybe it'll arrive on the day of. I'm hoping maybe at least the single elimination winner go home aspect will force Struber to maybe get a little less cute with it, and I just really like it if at least some of our guys with really good technique and a feeling for the moment, kind of like Luquinhas, Morgan, Klimala, maybe even Drew, are still on the pitch towards the late parts of a game. If it's 0-0, if it's tied, and it's just going to be that kind of game where a moment decides it. This is not the time to pull out Luquinhas for 5 minutes because you have, an idea or a spreadsheet column cross tabulation that shows that the risk is slightly less if you do it this. It's the time to let you guys cook, I guess is what I mean to say. And I hope that at least when the final whistle blows, we've at least had all of our guys out there for long enough to give them a chance to cook. And we don't try to get way too clever here.
No, you're so right. I forgot that is the thing I'm the most worried about is the second half adjustment and what that will look like, the rationale behind all those different decisions, and if we're gonna actually, as you said, see Luquinhas for 90 or ish.
Too many subs spoil the broth, as they say.
Exactly.
To carry the analogy further.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts about this? I guess it's away, so I guess we'll just watch it at home, won't we? That's it.
Yep.
Right. You mean we're not taking a Sprinter van down to Orlando? We're not
Greyhound busing?
Yeah, we're not gonna stop in Daytona and
I was actually planning on just I've been watching a lot of YouTube videos that's just like 12 hours of guys jumping on the back of cargo trains, freight trains,
Nice.
illegally, and just, I haven't actually been watched, don't worry. I just know that these exist. I don't actually watch them. So that was just planning
certainly
on,
don't participate in it myself.
I just was planning on jumping on a Union Pacific train down to Orlando in the next, maybe give myself 48 hours and I'll get there before kickoff, I think there's probably a rail yard near the stadium. So that'll work.
This will, as our games, our away games in Florida tend to be, there should be some good crowd shots of people who are like just inexplicably, obviously Red Bulls fans who live and are based in Florida.
Yeah.
So, gussy yourselves up, guys, because we'll be watching.
We're looking for you. This one's for you guys. It's all for you. Well, hopefully it's another happy episode next week.
Wait, did you see? Well, I was gonna say we didn't talk about the other game, but did you see there was an article about like where are they from the Chelsea 4-2 friendly that we had?
Oh, the Barcelona. I'm not actually gonna talk about.
Well,
the
I know,
Barcelona.
but I just wanted to bring that article up, but it's like depressing that basically, and kind of telling maybe in how we should look at the second team that 80% of that team is retired now.
Who? Yeah, I mean, there's one or two names. There's Sean Davis and Tyler Adams.
Yeah,
There's also,
and there's the other
Sean
kid who scored
McLaws.
was Sean McLaws played that game. The other kid who scored is retired.
Wasn't there another Castellanos on that team?
Maybe, yeah.
Manolo Sanchez maybe was in there. Yeah, real. That was first season ever of RB2, right? Yeah, it was just kind of academy guys.
It's fun memories. Maybe we could do that to Barcelona this year. Is basically all I wanted to say. It's maybe set them off to a really bad start to their season and just derail their whole project.
Barcelona has no shame though.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
And there's no stakes for Barcelona right now.
They'll come in third at worst.
And it doesn't even matter. But
they're in hyper reality.
But yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of people in our circle of RB&Y fandom, it's just been to borrow the Mafia term. It's just been kind of an urn.
Oh yeah, if you're listening,
moving airplane tickets through Tony's mother,
buy my ticket. You'll be surprised to hear that my season ticket's in section 102. It's row 9, seat 11.
Yeah, you putting out a plug.
Yeah, I'm just if you want to buy a ticket for an absurd amount of money, send it my way.
It'd be hilarious if this works somehow. I guess we won't really know, will it?
No.
Maybe if you buy the ticket, include it in the memo that you heard it here. We'll charge you extra. But yeah, any other thoughts? The next game we have after this is on a Tuesday, and fuck that. I'm not talking about a Tuesday game. Like, I don't know when we're gonna record, but I just refuse to acknowledge this more than I have now. So we'll worry about that later. Hopefully we'll be talking to you while we're on our way to the Open Cup final. Till then.